Well, now to this story. The National Guard is staying in Memphis. This comes after a legal back and forth for months between Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris and Governor Bill Lee to get them out. Action News 5's Imani Williams shares more about the decisions and potential challenges.
Seeing National Guard troops in Memphis will continue. Tuesday, the Tennessee Court of Appeals reversed a previous injunction ordering the Guard to leave.
So it should provide a lot of guidance to courts in the future about what to do with cases along these lines, whether it involves the National Guard or any other constitutional claim.
The opinion filed Tuesday was entirely about the plaintiffs, including Shelby County Mayor Lee Harris's standing to even bring the lawsuit. It didn't touch on if the National Guard should be here in Memphis. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti says this opinion could be used in other cases when there is a question of who has the right to undo something done by the governor.
But an individual legislator can't run to the courts to try to undo a decision they don't like. And similarly with the county mayor, he's not allowed to bring suit on behalf of the entire county without authorization, I guess, from the county commission, but he individually can't do that.
The appellate court's opinion said the plaintiffs had no personal injury in this case, so they had no standing to bring the lawsuit. So if the county commission made a vote to allow the mayor to bring the lawsuit on behalf of the county, that may change the standing.
So that would solve the problem they were looking at with respect to the mayor. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that there would be standing because you still have to show an injury to the county.
Action News 5 reached out to Harris for his comment on this on Tuesday and Wednesday with no response. Reporting in Midtown, Imani Williams, Action News 5.